The UN is asking for a record $41 billion in humanitarian aid for next year. It cited the wide range of acute and worsening crises, including conflicts and the spread of COVID-19 infections in places where vaccines aren't available. Paolo Montesiglio has more.
People in the northern Afghan city of Mazar-i-Sharif are hawking household goods in order to buy food. And they're among the lucky ones as they still have something to sell.
They don't have anything. They spend their furniture, sell their furniture, sell their animals. Most of them sell their houses for food, but now they don't have anything to buy food.
All 34 Afghan provinces are facing food shortages due to a trifecta of crises. The country was already suffering from a drought when the COVID-19 pandemic hit last year. Then came the Taliban takeover this August after US and NATO troops pulled out of Afghanistan, ending 2 decades of war. It resulted in the withdrawal of humanitarian assistance, which millions of people depend on.
And these are the children that are making it to the hospitals. How many more are behind them where their families are unable to bring them to the hospitals?
Afghanistan is just one of many emergency zones where life-saving aid is needed. The UN is asking for a record $41 billion for 2022. That's up 17% from this year. The funds would be spent to help 183 million people caught up in conflict and poverty in 63 countries. The biggest recipient will be Afghanistan, which needs $4.5 billion. Money will also go to relief programs in Syria, Yemen, Ethiopia, and Sudan.
The drivers of need are ones which are familiar to all of us, tragically. It includes protracted conflicts, political instability, failing economies, the climate crisis, not a new crisis, but one which urges more attention, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic.
The UN says the multiple and worsening disasters of the past year have hampered its campaigns against HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria, and that 23 million children haven't received basic vaccines because resources were diverted elsewhere. And it's warned that these problems will only get worse if the international community fails to step up. Paolo Montesiglio, TRT World.
John Sifton is the Asia Advocacy Director at Human Rights Watch. He tells us what's needed on the ground.
This is an urgent situation in multiple countries, in particular Afghanistan. And we're asking donor countries to understand that with Afghanistan, it's not a question of providing assistance to the Taliban, which a lot of donors are uncomfortable with right now, but rather providing assistance that can be channeled through private actors and humanitarian groups and the United Nations to get the economy back on track and to give life-saving humanitarian assistance. But it's not just the money, it's also the loosening of restrictions that would allow it to move into the country, which is just as important. It doesn't matter if you give a lot of money to Afghanistan if you can't actually send it and get it withdrawn from banks there. There's already money that's in donor accounts that are administered by the World Bank. There's other assets that are outside of the control of the Taliban. We have made recommendations to the United States, to the United Nations Security Council, and to humanitarian groups about ways to move money through private banks that would prevent the Taliban from taking it for illegitimate reasons or taxing it in some prohibitive way. Those recommendations are on the table. It's just a question of governments making it happen, and in particular, the United States. Because again, humanitarian assistance can't feed the entire country. The economy itself needs to have some remedial measures made to it. Otherwise, it will simply collapse. And without a banking system, it doesn't matter how much money donors pledge, because you can't move money without banks.